All right, welcome to another Health Freedom Iowa Thursday Night Live. I'm just Joni, or Joni Abbott, along with Jason Burmis. He's our guest this evening, and you are a new Iowan resident, Jason. Let's get to talking. Let's chat a little bit more about what brought you to Iowa.
Well, obviously, with the restrictions in New York State, I started to see there was no way that I was going to be living there. We'd already had a lot of things happen in New York State that I wasn't in love with prior to COVID and the executive orders surrounding that. For instance, catch and release went into effect on the first that year, and literally. I'm not a city guy. I just want to make that clear. Most people think that New York City is the only thing in New York. If my fist is New York City, or New York, this part is New York City, and 10 million people are in the rest of my fist. 10 million people are down in the city. And literally the night, and it wasn't even late night yet, on New Year's Eve, there's just one small highway and somebody ran another human being down, okay? And whatever was happening there, I don't know. That person did end up dying. Now, because of the new catch and release policy, this person didn't even have a license, had 3 other tickets, and he drove off that night. And I just couldn't believe, it's not like he was drunk or anything. It was like early, but he still ended up killing a person, and at very least, vehicular manslaughter possibility with no license. And I'm like, man, that's nuts. They had taken away they had taken away religious exemptions for vaccines at that point as well. And I had moved my nieces and my sister up about 4 years prior, so they could go to school here and have a little bit better of a life. And we had gotten, after fighting very hard in New York, because it's not easy, for those religious exemptions, okay? And we got them. And then again,
Yes, I remember that. That was a really intense time in New York.
Well, and then another executive order, and it's over. And I'm not kidding you, up until the day we left, which was not until we left right in the beginning, before October 1st. They took off before me. To the day we left, even though they were not in in-person school at all, they were pestering my sister about them getting those shots. They weren't even in school with the children. And we'd already won, but they'd taken away. So, there were a lot of things. But the final straw was when I began walking down my main street. And again, this is a small college town. It's a place called Oneonta. It's where I went to college. And I saw metal signs that said, "Please wear your mask." And to me, as soon as it's a metal sign, it's really not please anymore. Because, first of all, the terminology essential worker, I wasn't thrilled with. A lot of people might want to look into a film called Schindler's List, which won the best picture in 1993. And I'm a 41-year-old guy. I know I look young, but I like to think I'm pretty well read, pretty well watched. And I specifically remember the one-armed man in the subplot of that who Schindler employed so he would not have to go to a camp. And his last words being, as Nazis laughed at him in front of a group of people, no, I am essential worker. And they joke, he is essential, right before they put a bullet in his head. So when I saw the please, the Nazis were real nice when they wanted to see your papers. They'd always end it with please. I said, that's it. We need to leave. We need to get out of here. And I decided to take a trip from New Hampshire. And ironically, I've been doing this a very long time. And the day before I was to leave, they busted Ghislaine Maxwell and in her New Hampshire hideout. So the 2 guys that I was going to meet, a comedic group, and they also do podcasts. They're great. The Jackman brothers. We actually went out to the hideout the next day. So,
oh my gosh.
I went out to New Hampshire.
I don't know anybody who like you, Jason. I just don't.
Well, again, you can see all this on my channel if you want to check out all of my stuff. But this, again, is a case that I've been kicking and screaming about since 2009. This isn't new to me. So, this was a big deal. And we went out there, and I mean, that was way in the woods. And New Hampshire, definitely live free or die, obviously why I started there, and I'd plan to see these guys. But I was looking to get away from the East Coast just because if you looked at what was happening in Connecticut, even Pennsylvania, which has a very different political view in many cases than the rest of New York, and really New York City is what you see in the media, not upstate New York, which again is
I've been to Ithaca, I've been to Syracuse, Buffalo. Like it's
And
not
those are the
same
urban
thing.
areas. Those are the city-like areas. They are surrounded by farmland. Like people don't understand. I lived when I went to high school. So I moved from Dutchess County in high school, and that's about 45 minutes from the city. So I was in and out of Brooklyn and things like that a lot of my younger life. But when we came up, I will never forget it. I was 12 years old, and it wasn't even high school; it was middle school. And as we drove up, my house was in a little parking lot in this little town. It had a little patch of grass, and like the town Grand Union and bank were there. And there was a horse and buggy Amish couple with their kids having a picnic on my back lawn, right there. And I'm like, where did I've never seen a Stewart's before, all these things. And I literally had Amish people in and out of my town because they had a community like 5 miles up the road. I ended up doing construction as a kid. It opened my eyes because I had seen a lot more urban, and now I'd seen like the super side of country, to me wanting to get probably more towards the Midwest. And South Dakota, at least in the media, had seemed like it was the most open state. So that was my end destination. Okay. Ohio, that was on the way. I enjoyed it there. Missouri, I stopped at these places. I decided I was going to, do this for maybe a month, really just because, again, this is a big move. I'm not a young guy, and my nieces are involved. My sister's involved. It's a big decision. And I wasn't even planning on coming to Iowa. So I was going to go to Wisconsin because they had also fought pretty hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was in Missouri, and I was in a bar, and I was watching MMA on my phone, a UFC Fight Pass. I'm a big MMA guy. Actually, I'm calling fights this weekend prior to the picnic here locally at Caged Aggression. One of the perks of moving here fell into that. And
that's very cool because we all have some MMA and UFC fighter friends.
Yeah, it's great here.
Here in the Quad Cities. Yeah, we've had a lot of guys come in and out of here, champs.
Well, exactly, and Pat, I watched UFC 1 on pay-per-view as a kid with my buddies, and then it was banned in New York for a long time. So the only way it was actually out of my life for a good while because the only way you could get it were like DVDs. And my brother,
ones that people would like record.
Well, you could get them in the DVD store. It was the weirdest thing. You couldn't buy a pay-per-view in New York State, and obviously this is the pre-streaming era. We're talking 90s. So early 90s, it was allowed and even legal here. And then it was completely banned. So I lost interest. My brother kept interest. And it was around that period of my documentary filmmaking career in like 2005 and 6 that it started to get on TV again. And now you could actually get it. And my brother was big into it again. So the Miletich era was that era of them upseating the Gracies. And Miletich was calling the fight. I happened to be watching in that bar. So I had done his podcast before. We DM'd several times, and I just DM'd him. I said, yo, man, you're telling me that there's going to be a crowd in Iowa and you're fighting?
You mean in the middle of a cornfield? There's a crowd? Because people had that misconception about Iowa, right? That it's just...
Well, I saw I'm not that ignorant, but Mississippi Valley Fairgrounds, I had actually expected something different than when I had gotten there. I figured there might be some kind of like an outdoor arena kind of setting and not just like a parking lot or whatever.
Right.
But at the same time, especially with the restrictions in New York, I don't think people understand. Before I got back into this, I did a large stint where I was running a bar, okay? And my town is a bar town. And to see the bar that I used to run to have to come in with a mask, play act, come up, sit down, take off my mask, couldn't even order a beer. They had to put food in front of me first. Like I wanted to eat before I could order anything. And then if I wanted to go to the bathroom, put my mask on, go to the bar, come back, play act. I couldn't get up and go talk to my friend down the bar. You could only be with the people that you came in with. I mean, it was madness. I don't listen, I'm not a child. I don't need to be told what to do. I'm an adult. And to be treated like this and the train, it was too much for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
how did they even enforce that? Because, I have some really good friends in New York too. And really here in Iowa, we do not conceptualize what it was like.
They enforced it.
To have that level of enforcement and that level of oppression that whole time that you're just trying to roam free and act in your own liberty.
The health department will come in with the sheriff, period. Like, and the local cops don't want to do it. And it's usually not even really like the sheriff you elected. Like they'll get some deputy or something like that. Because even the stadies don't want to do it. Okay? But, out of fear, really. And then the contact tracing came, and we were actually, people can look it up. We were the big outbreak over the summer when they tried to have school come back in that August. You know, that was a big fear-mongering campaign. Literally, they were doing the tests around the corner. This is what the joke is to me. You know, it's supposed to be so deadly and so killer, and it's at the Armory, and I'm doing one of my walk and talks 2 blocks from my house. And a teenage or early 20s girl walks out the back door with nothing but a face shield, like a plastic piece, waving at my camera like it's a party. You know, I mean, come on. So I was done, obviously, by the summer. I was already booked in South Dakota. I was actually leaving Missouri the next day, and the fight was the next week, so it was almost perfect. I'd booked South Dakota for a week. I came back through. Militich was good on his word, got me into the fights as a press. I had a great time, you know, not only covering it and showing people they were having, we could all live together, and it's awesome. But like people, again, it was normal. People were giving me a beer. We were having a chat. I was watching fights. I was amongst people. That weighed heavy, obviously. I went back through Missouri. I might have chose that, but my sister and the kids decided to come out. And even at that point, another big selling point was they had not put masks on children in schools yet here. Okay? So it was like almost a no-brainer. After they, pretty much agreed, I came back here. I looked at like 4 or 5 houses to rent because, again, who knows if I'm going to stay. I got a 1-year lease with this one place, which is beautiful here in Bettendorf. And we came out. And so far, it's been a very positive experience. At least I'm given the choice most of the time. And when I'm not given the choice, I can hopefully have a conversation, or I'll just leave. You know, I don't love being on the Illinois side, obviously. But like you know, we'll be with like-minded friends on that Illinois side that also get it. And what I don't like about being on the Illinois side is I'm in an awesome business for the first time with you and 10 other people. We're there for literally 2 hours. And this is a restaurant with high ceilings, with a big bar, with an open dance floor where you would, on a Thursday night, likely see 150 people come through in those 2 hours. And we saw 8 that weren't us.
Yeah, there were not a lot of people.
That's heartbreaking. That's what this is about, right? Like people need to get it.
Small businesses being so impacted by this. And, you know, that's really kind of what I think is bringing all of us together now in this great state of Iowa as we want to raise awareness and really raise awareness for common sense and logical thinking. I mean, this is not that hard to understand that we have restrictions on children with masks in schools. And yet as soon as school is over, all these kids are hanging out. Have you been to a park? You know, no kids wearing a mask. They're all running around together. You go to a restaurant, they're all there hanging out, and nobody is sick. They're coming back into school. They're like, nobody is sick for it. The numbers are not reflecting more illness and a disadvantage to their well-being as a result of it. So yeah, it's really, we've had to ignore a lot of logic and common sense in order to continue to enforce some of these mandates or, you know, policies that haven't even really been thought thoroughly through or approved, because everything changes with the CDC day to day. You know, like there's just so much going on.
Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here. And if you want to see that full, uncensored, almost 90-minute long interview, go make that free Rockfin account right now. And don't forget to join us at Crow Creek Park in Bettendorf, Iowa this Mother's Day for a blast amongst friends and moms everywhere.